If there are two things that George R. R. Martin has made absolutely essential to his Song of Ice and Fire series, it's Victarion Greyjoy and prophecies that will be precisely accurate to what will happen in the future. This is exactly why both of these elements played such key roles in the critically acclaimed home box office program, A Game of Thrones. But what if these two elements are intrinsically linked and connected? What if the Iron Captain that we've always known to be good, kind, and heroic turns out to be more than he seems? What if Victarion Greyjoy is destined to save the world both from White Walkers and from Cersei Lannister? Today, I, Quinn the Grandmother, will be examining the irrefutable evidence that proves both of these theories beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not even theories at this point, it's just facts. And we're going to examine those facts today. Victarion Greyjoy is introduced to the reader in the second book of the series, A Clash of Kings. While he appears in several scenes on Pike via Theon's perspective, he has a grand total of one line. This single utterance is pretty much the most generic thing that any Ironborn can say, that being, "What is dead may never die." However, this is merely the beginning of Martin's long con. He's lulling the reader into a false sense of security and hoping that the subtle hints towards his grand prophetic plan have gone unnoticed for the present moment. However, I've noticed everything with my 1,000 eyes in one. This is merely the beginning of a books-long misdirection regarding the true role of Victarion. Victarion later returns in A Feast for Crows, where he becomes a point of view character. Victarion entering the spotlight allowed Martin to shine a light on the character's remarkable intellect, potentially as a hint that it may influence the story to come. It is here where we begin to learn about the Iron Captain as a person, as well as details of his past. One particular element of that past serves as a massive piece of evidence here, specifically in the conflicts in which he has fought. These conflicts are a direct parallel to the story of the original Azor Ahai and his Forging of Lightbringer, and this parallel could show that Victarion is this hero, reborn and come again, intending to save the world from the new Long Night and the threat of the others. Lightbringer was the original Azor Ahai's magic sword. It was said to be the key to ending the Long Night and to driving back the others. He tried 3 times to forge it. The first time he cooled it in water, and it shattered. The second time he cooled it by stabbing it through a lion, and it shattered again. The third and final time he cooled it by stabbing his beloved wife through the heart. The first conflict in which Victarion served was Robert's Rebellion. Throughout this war, Victarion raided in the Reach with the Ironborn, partially to help the Starks and partially because they're terrible people. However, in the Battle of the Mander, Victarion's father, Quellin, is slain. This conflict is ultimately a failure for the Greyjoys, as they lose their lord and gain pretty much nothing from Robert being made the new king. This loss mirrors the first sword, breaking in the water, Azor Ahai's first experience with failure and with defeat, leading to future attempts to forge something stronger and more powerful. This event doesn't tend to weigh very heavily on Victarion Greyjoy's mind, but this is likely just another misdirect from our author's masterful plan that he has entirely constructed from far beyond the series even being written. He's an architect, not a gardener, after all. Several years later, the Greyjoys started a war of their own. Thinking the new crown weak, Balon Greyjoy named himself King of the Iron Isles and rose up in rebellion. The first blow of this conflict was struck by Victarion himself. The Iron Captain burned the Lannister fleet at its harbor in Lannisport. Despite destroying one of the foremost fleets in Westeros, the Greyjoys were soon crushed by the entire force of the Seven Kingdoms. Victarion had attempted to prove his mettle again by stabbing a lion, metaphorically, unless Tyrion is secretly a Greyjoy through stabbing Joanna in some way or another, as people think Rhaegar might have done with Lyanna, if you catch my drift. However, this rebellion fails, and the Ironborn are forced to return to their islands in defeat, once again marking an attempted forging of a sword, this time in the lion and in the lion's fleet, that ultimately fails and does not accomplish what Victarion initially set out to do. The third instance of the Forging of Lightbringer is still occurring in our story. Victarion is seemingly thrown in behind his brother, Euron, but has a number of reasons to prioritize other causes above the Crow's Eye. Namely, first and foremost, he attempted to become King of the Iron Islands before his brother Euron did, and Euron was able to kind of swoop in and sweet-talk everybody else into supporting him instead. Also, and more importantly, he did hate his brother Euron because Euron seduced Victarion's wife, which resulted in Victarion killing her. The memory of this event serves as a core tenet of Victarion's character, which he uses as justification for pursuing his own agenda above that of his brother. And of course, it directly mirrors the third forging of Lightbringer. Azor Ahai killed Nissa, and from this love and this sacrifice, the weapon that will save the world is born. In this case, resentment built by Euron, totally being the one at fault for Victarion's wife's death, will result in Victarion and his fleet pursuing his own goals. A now honed weapon to save the world from darkness, thanks to Victarion being just so full of love for his dead wife that died for reasons entirely relating to Euron. Throughout the latter half of Feast and Dance, Victarion sails east, attempting to join his forces to those of Daenerys Targaryen. His initial idea is to marry her, though this seems unlikely to happen for a number of reasons. That said, Victarion will still likely act as Dany's admiral, and he could receive great reward for delivering the Dragon Queen the seas of her homeland. It's on the journey to Daenerys where more pieces of the puzzle that was promised fall into place. While taking the Shield Islands, Victarion duels a knight named Sir Talbot Serry. Victarion easily wins this thanks to his big brain move of wearing full plate on the high seas. However, in this conflict, he catches Serry's blade in one of his armored hands. Victarion graciously allows his hand to be wounded, and that injury becomes infected during his journey further eastward. That is, until the cure of his problems is found floating on a plank of wood, adrift and alone in the sea, as Victarion knew he would be in his all-seeing wisdom. The Red Priest Makoro is pulled from the oceans south of Essos, and after some deliberation is brought aboard Victarion's ship, the Iron Victory. Makoro catches Victarion's interest when he offers to heal the injury sustained in the duel with Serry. It's a painful process, as many in the ship note screaming and mad laughter echoing across the water for an entire night. But come morning, Victarion is healed. He emerges with a hand far stronger than that which he had originally possessed, burnt black and red, and constantly emanating an aura of smoke. Victarion has been reborn, as Azor Ahai was long prophesied to do, and this rebirth took place amidst the salt of the sea and the smoke of his newly charred arm. Now that we've so thoroughly established that Victarion is Azor Ahai and everyone agrees with me, we need to consider what role he might play in the fight against the White Walkers. Victarion and his fleet could prove incredibly important to this conflict. Should the others make it further than Winterfell, and should the long night last more than 81 minutes, ships could be crucial for either saving the characters who are still alive and allowing them to escape, or for providing reinforcements in order to defeat the army of the dead once and for all. As seen in the episode of A Clash of Kings entitled Hardhome, the dead don't attack boats. They're probably afraid of boats. This is now a fact in book canon as well, and due to the fact that the show and the books are so similar, I will use it as evidence here. This does further cement Victarion as essential, as he is the main commander of a fleet in our story right now, as he has taken most of the Iron Fleet away from Euron at the moment. But that's only half the prophetic battle. In the television show A Storm of Swords, we see that Cersei Lannister marries Euron Greyjoy. While that seems quite unlikely at present in the books, it remains a distinct possibility. In the Forsaken sample chapter from The Winds of Winter, Aeron Greyjoy observes Euron with a woman, assumedly his bride, made of pale flame. Cersei has been shown to have certain pyromaniacal tendencies, read Burning Tower of the Hand, and these tendencies may be the route she uses to escape persecution and seek revenge on the faith and those who have wronged her in King's Landing. However, if she takes the route she did in the television program, she'll likely be hated by everyone in King's Landing, something that really didn't occur in that show. Coincidentally, so will Euron. Aegon won't like him, and Victarion will already have poisoned the well with Dany. Cersei might be Euron's next best shot at power, potentially through supporting her claim or Tommen's claim on the throne. After exacting her revenge on King's Landing, Cersei will likely return to Casterly Rock to rule, as she's the only person who can, as Tyrion's away with Dany and Jaime is either dead by Lady Stoneheart's hand or just kind of chilling in the Riverlands as he has been. This is where one of George R.R. Martin's recent blog posts comes into play. This recent post goes into extreme detail on Casterly Rock, notably focusing on its naval surroundings. This would be quite important were an Ironborn POV character be arriving on Casterly Rock. Tyrion thinks several times about his duties, absolutely pun intended, as the keeper of the Rock's sewer system, and it seems as though the knowledge he gained from this job would greatly aid him in any invasion. If one of Dany's commanders were to accompany Tyrion, it would likely be Victarion, as the fastest way to get to the Rock could be via boat. Victarion arriving on Casterly Rock could finally give him the chance to exact vengeance on his brother for what was done to his wife so long ago. Victarion could have the chance to kill Cersei Lannister. This potential fate for Cersei directly fulfills the prophecy given by the Woods Witch in her youth. This witch states that Cersei will be killed by, quote, the Valonqar, or little brother in Giscari or something. She goes on to specify that once Cersei's tears have drowned her, the Valonqar will wrap his hands around her neck and choke the life from her. A bunch of little details from this prophecy line up perfectly with Victarion. Once your tears have drowned you could be referring to Cersei turning to the Ironborn in the aftermath of whatever's going to happen in King's Landing. They worship the drowned god, and Euron is referred to in prophecy several times as a drowned crow. In this case, the Valonqar wouldn't be Tyrion, as Cersei had always suspected. The little brother is in fact a little brother-in-law, as Victarion strangling Cersei would bring an end to his arc of uxoricide. The final detail that seals Victarion's fate as a prophecy magnet comes from the attitude of our author himself. He seems to have a very high opinion of Victarion's genius-level intellect, and he seems to have a similarly high opinion about prophecy and what it can do to a story. Martin's story is built a lot on subverting expectations, and if we took any lesson from A Feast for Crows, the HBO program, we know that subverting expectations is the only thing that matters. That's the entire point of Quentin's story in A Dance with Dragons. It's just one big subversion of typical adventure tropes. What if he's trying to equate prophecies with the dumbest thing possible? What if all of the prophecies are answered by the dumbest character possible? What if Victarion is Azor Ahai and is the Valonqar through just sheer prophetic luck? I look forward to this theory being proven correct, as The Winds of Winter will be coming out in about 6 months' time. So be sure to comment on this video then and let me know how correct I am, as I will very much appreciate that. Not that I need it, as I am quite assured in the knowledge that I've gathered for this. I've done a lot of research for this video, and I'm sure you're able to tell. Hey, thank you for bearing with me through that video. I really appreciate it. This is a bit different than stuff I've made in the past for some unknown reason. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it. Different tone. It was still kind of fun to make. I'd love to make kind of more just kind of off-the-wall theories like this if people end up liking it. But my thought was today was as good a day as any to start with this, as, I don't know, through the process of making this video, I think I've kind of Stockholm syndromed myself into at least thinking that Victarion could be the Valonqar. But that's just me, and I'm probably just going insane. But I don't think that's anything new in this fan base. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, all that typical YouTube stuff. It really helps me grow the channel, and I always really appreciate it. Leave a comment. Let me know how much you agree with me. And yeah, I hope everyone has a happy April Fool's Day. I'll see y'all soon.